Hey, it's Marthea of Hits, the MSW coach, and I am back with another episode of my podcast, Macro Social Work Your Way. Look, we on a roll. We are bringing in the alums back to back to back to talk about their career wins of being inside of the accelerator. And today is no different. I'm so excited to have this alum on here today because we have come a long way. I'm so excited for her to share and talk about her experience inside of the accelerator and her macro career wins. So, hey, Candice, how you doing? Introduce yourself to the listeners. Start by telling them who you are as a human.
Okay. Okay. Hi everybody. My name is Candice Givens Omar. I am uh, a Black woman. I am a mother. I'm a wife. I am a social worker as well. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been um, licensed about 5 years, but I've been in the field over a decade. And so I've been making my strides in these social work streets. I started my career in North Carolina, but I'm currently located in California. So that's just a little bit about me.
I love that. I was taking notes. So you've been licensed over a decade. Okay. Can you share, like, give a little overview of what populations and issues you worked with as a licensed social worker?
Yeah, so I've been in the field for a decade, but I've only been licensed for about 5 years. But actually, I started my social work career working in group homes in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, where I supported adults with mental health and developmental disabilities. That was a in-home living situation with the population I serve. So I always say I was in the trenches. Like I started out in the trenches, working 7 days on and 7 days off, and organizing that group home and really like kickstarting my social work experience and getting to know programs and different populations and their needs. And so I started there, and then I transitioned into doing workforce development case management work for migrant and seasonal farm workers in North Carolina. That's where I really brushed off my Spanish speaking skills. And again, I would say, like in the trenches, we worked a lot in the fields. And that's where I realized that I didn't love sitting behind a desk and doing social work. I like to be out in the community and being connected with the community. So I did that for 3 years or so, something like that, 2 or 3 years before I transitioned into a role at UNC Chapel Hill, where it was a research position. So I was actually located at the Durham County Health Department. So we were doing public health, implementing a public health program at the health department in Durham. And so that's where again, we were really connected in the community, was able to get exposure to leadership, and where I headed different community coalitions, and I got to know more about research and public health and how that really intersected with social work. We did a lot of presentations and education of the community and also peers. And so that's where I learned that, oh, I really like the education piece of social work. I like that part of things. I was able to do a lot of traveling in that role. So that's where I got my understanding that, social workers can travel, right? We can do this work and again, not be behind a desk. So I stayed there for a while until that grant ended, and then I transitioned to another role at UNC in the UNC system. Where I was doing direct clinical practice. So at this point, I was licensed and, getting into the clinical nature of things. And then from there, I spent some time in employee assistance programs, whereas that was my recent role in before I transitioned to the role I just got. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been in employee assistance and tech space, which has, again, certainly broadened my horizons as a social worker because it showed me that social work is everywhere, right? They were in all different levels, from direct practice to C-suite to, sales. And so it just really helped me understand like how broad and how multifaceted social work is just throughout all of those experiences.
Mm, I love that. I love how you took us from the very early days to where you were prior to your new macro job. Um, because that is a very realistic like picture of a career journey.
Mhm.
That I don't think a lot of social workers ever get to hear in depth. Like you do gotta start in the trenches. I always say my first case management job, baby, that was the battleground. If I
Oh,
could make it there. I'm not afraid to apply to anything because if I made it there for 5 years, I'm ready for anything. So I love that. Can you talk to us? And I'm gonna come back a little bit to some of that experience that you talked about, but can you help the people understand like what did your process look like looking for macro social work jobs? So you had the UNC position, but then you went back to direct practice, and then your job before that. Is that what they consider corporate social work? Your last job without getting into the details?
um, yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, it was definitely a corporate environment. It wasn't like
Corporate. Okay.
community or county based roles that I had before. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I just wanted to say without getting into details about where Candice her last job was, but Candice's last job was like what social workers consider as goals. I will say that. And I know you won't
Mm.
understand that. Like she had the social work goals job. So it to hear you talk about your early beginnings to where you progressed, that's amazing. So when you realized that you wanted to do more like macro specific work, what did that process look like for you as far as looking for jobs? Because it sounded like you mastered how to get direct practice jobs, even meso level jobs. What did your process look like for macro level jobs
Back then, or just like in general.
back then? Like were you applying for jobs, were you going on interviews?
Well, honestly, I didn't even realize that back to my job in higher education and research, I at the time wasn't fully aware that it was a macro job. At the time I was getting my master's, so I was going on Saturdays, and I'm sure a lot of social workers know about the 3 year program on Saturdays. I was going on Saturdays and getting my master's while enrolled in that program, and it came to time to do the internship, our practicum, and I actually did employment based that year, and I was focusing on a lot of the macro aspects of that job, the community building. So I was like, oh, okay, like I really like this. I really like what I'm doing. I like traveling. I like working in higher ed, but also at the county level. We were in the county jail. I had made a lot of connections through that role, and so that's where I really fell in love with macro social work. But I still had in my brain that I need to be clinical. I need to focus on getting my license. I need to, I never knew I knew that getting a license would be a benefit to me, but I was never like in love with it. Like I can remember in my MSW program, like how many of you, want to do therapy and be licensed, and I was like, I don't know. So, I just felt like I think I had that in my brain that okay, now that I've got my MSW, I need to get licensed, and so that's why I pursued licensure. But it was never really like my first love. It was not like what motivated me to be a social worker. It wasn't really what I connected the most to. But then, as you get older and you mature and you are, you have these different jobs, you have the dream job with the remote position and, benefits and perks and all that things. But you're like, okay, am I really happy? Like, do I see myself doing this is this what my social work career is gonna be, so just having to do some soul searching and realizing, okay, I'm not necessarily happy doing direct practice work. What have I done in my career that really resonated with me, And I always knew that it was macro social work. I've been following Marthea for years. I've been following you for years. And so I'm like, okay, people are out here. I'm not the only person that's like, wants a macro position that's not necessarily clinical. I can really lean into that part. So that, just, and so the seed had been sown. I just hadn't necessarily taken, watered the plant, right? But the seed had been sown through previous roles, through, like I said, following you for years, and then just growing and maturing in my career where I wanted something different. I know I needed to do something that was more in alignment with who I am and my soul, so I can, not feel so. I feel like when we do that, we don't feel so drained in our jobs.
I love that. And I'm kind of going to jump ahead on the talking points based on what you just said here. So you talked about doing work that was aligned. For you, what type of work did you, once you were inside of the program, the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator, and you went through the clarity process and you learned the three Ps, what type of work did you learn was aligned with like what you were envisioning in your head?
So I knew I wanted to work with a program that was rooted in community, that like um, even though I didn't necessarily want to do direct practice, I wanted to be a part of an organization that served where I live. Like I said, I transitioned from North Carolina to California, and I'm in the stage of, that process where I'm really like trying to build my village out here. And so it was important for me to find organizations that served my community, at least my state. So that was really big for me. And that also supported social workers. Like it was it's one of my deep passions that helping professionals are supported. The people that are on the front lines are getting the support that they need, that are given the professional development that we need to, do the heavy work. There's a lot, that everybody sees how the mental health crisis has an impact on our society, our economy, everyone around us, whether it affects you indirectly or directly. So it's really important that we are supporting the people that are doing the heavy work. So that was another thing that I wanted to keep. I wanted to support social workers or people. And so and through the program, you help me understand, like, okay, you want to support helping professionals. What does that look like? Who does that encompass? And so not only social workers, but we thought about other professionals like teachers and nurses. And so just frontline workers in general. I kept those two things in mind.
I love that, right? So, and this is for the listeners. Right before we click record, Candice shared her win in our community about her macro job, but I hadn't heard all of the details about it. So the moment I was like, "Tell me about this job," and so the moment she like gave me two sentences of the scope, I said, "Oh, that's supporting social workers. That's what you found out you wanted to do during the clarity process."
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you this so people understand the importance of the clarity work that we do, because that was a 30 to 45-day process that Candice went through. It was not we have one conversation and you say this is what I want. No, that was 30 to 45 days and there was like 3 to 4 different iterations of that, because in the beginning it was like financial focus and some other things and some other things, and it morphed into that. Would you have been able to identify the job that you landed as something that you wanted to do without the clarity? So let's say if you saw that job, because you said you were looking at a multitude of other jobs also at the same time. If you saw that job prior to coming into the program, would you have been able to identify that as that's something that I could potentially do?
You know, I probably would have seen the job, but not think I had the skills to apply to it. I never really viewed the past work I had done as education and technical assistance. I never really viewed it in that way. And so going through the career clarity program and just identifying the language and really streamlining like my different passions and going through the three P's and having that as like my compass through the job search was really helpful. And so I think I probably would have seen the role I applied to and thought, oh, maybe that's not for me because it says educator and what have I done to be an educator? I didn't really look at myself in that way without the program. So
I love that. So let me ask you this question. because I just wrapped up a conversation with someone who's considering coming into the next cohort, and I was
Mhm.
talking to her about the career clarity piece, and she was like, "Oh, that sounds like it could be a lot." And how would we do that? And I talked about the three P's framework. So prior to you, well, while you were in the program and you were going through the three P's framework, did you in the beginning think like this ain't gonna work, this will work, or this is gonna be a lot? What were your initial thoughts?
Well, I'm a natural skeptic, so I totally understand, some hesitation because, you see a lot of things out here and you're not sure if it will work for you, and like I said, I have a lot of different experiences. So it's like I was unsure because I'm like, I don't need anyone to help me find a job. Like I know how to find a job, but I wasn't finding the jobs that were in alignment with me. And so through the clarity piece, I was able to walk through those three P's, take things out, add things in, or, just really kind of it gives you that space and time, that structure to really like take a deep dive into what you've done, to really like look back on your career from an external standpoint, as if you weren't living it, but just like in a book. I would say that if I could describe what the career clarity was for me, it was giving me the opportunity to almost step outside of my career and like read it back to myself and say like, okay, this is the story you have written, and to help me understand that story so I can market myself in the job search.
That's powerful. I love when y'all clinical social workers come on. Y'all always come up with some beautiful ways to talk about it so eloquently. Okay, so I have a question for you. Prior to coming into the accelerator, had you attempted to apply for any macro jobs or go on any interviews? What did that look like for you?
Oh yeah. This is where the heartbreak story comes in because, if I'm being honest and transparent, I was applying to roles internally that I was not able to secure that were macro roles, that leading into the macro side of things. And so yes, I had applied places, and I was not landing those roles. I was, being told, giving good feedback, but still ultimately not securing those roles. And so that's honestly what made me, again, if something you're doing is not working, we gotta like take a step back and look at what we're doing. And so that's also what positioned me to get this, to go into the program and really take a look at myself and how I was marketing myself, how I was packaging myself in these interviews, and do something different, do something about it.
Was there any specific like event, either personally or professionally, because you said you had been following my content for a few years? Was there a specific personal or professional event that happened or thought that made you say, I'm signing up for this cohort?
It was I would say the heartbreak of like applying internally and not securing those roles. But ultimately, if I'm being honest, what thrust me, I started the program in the middle of my maternity leave, because I knew that I did not want to return back to the role that I was in. And so that, if anybody's a parent or a mother or somebody that's depending on you, in whatever capacity, they give you a boost of, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was postpartum adrenaline, but I was just like, I knew that I did not want to go back to the same old same when I came back from maternity leave. And so my original plan was like, I'm going to have a job before I go back, and I'm not going to have to go back. And so that was what, professionally, not getting those roles, but personally having my daughter and wanting more. And the people that are on the West Coast, California is not cheap. So you got to make that money, honey. You got to, so just, yeah, just, and also, um, like I said, just personally and professionally reaching a point where I was like, hey, like I've really done a lot, and I am not, um, I'm underselling myself by staying places where I'm comfortable and not investing in myself to make a change. I think that also was what holds people back sometimes. They worry about, oh, can I afford this? Is this something I can do? And again, I was in the middle of maternity leave, so and having a new baby, and babies aren't cheap, and so but I knew that I had to make the investment in myself. And if I did the right thing, I would have a return on my investment. If I really put myself in the program and did the work and asked the questions and made myself feel uncomfortable, then I would get a return on my investment. And so that's what I did.
Love that. And I know that Candice is a numbers person, she's a finance person. What percentage did you make on your return of investment? Like compared to, you don't tell us what you're making, but like percentage wise, give me percentage wise as far as salary and then personal life.
um. Oh, in comparison to the investment,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Oh, hold on. Let me do some math here. The investment, I don't know. Almost 10, more than 10 times my investment.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing my math right, I was able to increase my salary by almost 50%. The range that they were hiring in, and this I'm going to get emotional. I was not wanting to negotiate. Again, if you remember that I was so ready to leave my last role. I was like, gosh, if this comes through, because the range was all right. I'm like, I'm okay with whatever they give me. I was fine with that. I said I don't want to have to negotiate. And when I talked to the recruiter and she gave me the job over the phone, she said that they had already went back and asked for more money for me above the range she had already quoted me when I first started the process. So like the process of having to negotiate was just taken care of for me without, it just alignment, that's all I can say. But it was definitely a big return on investment.
And does it meet your non-negotiables as far? I love you, Candace, girl. Those you
I'm such a cancer, so like,
Oh, you earned it because Candice did the work. She got multiple heart-to-hearts in those 3 months. And if I was like, Candice, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. She went and did it. She came back. Not once did she go, what I like to say, go sit it out in the weeds. Not once did she question. She was like, okay. I said, Candice, I need you to stop doing this. And you did the work. You committed to the process. And you should be happy. You should be doing backflips. You, your husband, the baby, the in-law
yeah,
everybody because they all were supporting you in that. Candy
yes,
would be on office hour calls and the baby would be in the bed with her dad just waiting. And like she would be at the in-laws, she would be out of town with the in-laws.
yeah.
They out skiing. She on Zoom call with me talking about career coaching. Put in the
So
time and
true.
investment. Yeah, you put in the time and investment, and a lot of people don't do that, right? And so you should be excited because you deserve it. One, because you had the body of work to support it, but then you did the necessary investment. Time, what I always say, you got to invest something. It's for the listeners. Time, money, energy, or emotions. Which one is going to be? And it paid off
Mm-hmm.
for you. And what I always say is one good job will change your life.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about, you don't have to get into details, but does this job meet your non-negotiables, like for your personal life?
Yep, it's I still because like I said, I have a little one, so being remote, I was getting to a point where I was willing to go in office. I was like, whatever, I'll just take an in person job. But this job is remote, so it still allows the flexibility. I only have to go to the office twice a month, which still gives me that sense of community, that sense of a place I can go to where I can talk with people. They are based here in California, so they are helping the community that I now live in. And the salary, I have the opportunity for the first time in my career to receive a bonus, which I'm like, we never even heard of social workers getting a bonus, at least not where I worked. So having, not only did the salary exceed my expectations, knowing that there's opportunities to go above that, So yes, it meant all the things, and the team just really feels supportive. The people that I interviewed with, you could tell that she was like rooting for me along the way and like letting, giving me little seeds like, girl, you're gonna get this job, but I gotta go through the process kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely meeting you know, my requirements and my non-negotiables so far.
I love that. I love that. Job well done. So let's talk about, because I kind of jumped ahead. So let's go to the after you join the program. So you pay me your money, you put in your car information, you're in the program. What was your journey like inside of the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator as far as like onboarding, maybe the first few months? What did that feel like or look like for you?
So like I said, I had a little bit of time because I wasn't necessarily working in the beginning. I was on maternity leave. So I, invested into the program and we got started right away, and even I didn't wait till the end of the program to start applying. I think I had an interview with like right before the resume part or right after. And so some of the benefits of the program, we had to switch it around based on what was happening. And so I did that, and going through the career clarity piece, going through just the different modules, and really just taking it like a course. And I think it was also helpful seeing other social workers that were going through the process, and you could hear what some of their 3Ps were and where they were branching off to. And so I really liked that. At first, I didn't think that you made one may think like, oh, like I don't like groups, I don't want to, but that was really helpful because other people, I forgot what good term you use for your group coaching.
Meta learning, probably.
Yes, that's what it is. But different people, people are working through their things, and so it makes you think, oh, okay, like I do like that too. Is that something I could add in, or is that something I could explore? So really, learning us alongside your peers and figuring out what they're doing is helpful. Combined with the one-on-one experience that you get with Marthea, you need both, right? And so I really like how the program is structured because you get that group approach because we need to all learn from each other, but also you felt like you and Marthea had a one-on-one relationship, and she knew exactly what I forgot you even remember I was visiting my in-laws in Utah during one of our sessions. But that just goes to show like how you also have that one-on-one support that can help you through. And so I think I had an interview that didn't go so well, and I had a follow up with Marthea, and you were like, Candice, you got to get used to talking about yourself. And I just didn't realize that was the issue, like all along. And so when she said that, when you said that, as I went into other interviews, I would keep that in the back of my head, like, you got to get used to talking about yourself. And I would practice as if I was used to talking about myself. It was like just those words that was like, oh, okay, like this is what I need to do. So really taking the feedback that you have given us in the one-on-ones and actually sewing it into how you prepare helped me a lot as well.
I love that. Most definitely. And for the people who are listening, the program is group, but you do get one-on-one time with me, and that's unheard of in a group coaching program. And Candice has been in other coaching programs, not career coaching, but other programs. Like if you pay for group, that's only what you get. But because I'm so invested in getting more macro social workers out there, I do give you one-on-one time. And that's why I have such a stringent screening in process. I don't work with every social worker. Like I have to be able to buy into the vision, the draft version of the vision that you have. And once I'm bought in, I always tell people I ride with you till the wheels fall off. And like Candace said, you were in the program, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks before she got her first macro interview. It was for a job that she applied to prior to coming in for the program, but I prepared her for the interview and maybe like a supplemental something you had to submit. I don't remember. But I say all that to say that because I'm just that invested. So, like she said, I switched around the timeline and the curriculum. Like, I'm gonna help you get this job. But then also a part of coaching is it. This is again for the listeners. It extends beyond just learning how to write your resume or getting someone to write your resume. Because I know when people
Right.
come to my get to know you chats, they're considering the other options, a resume writer, a done for you service, or just like a e-course. But the benefit of live coaching and a curriculum model is that with live coaching, I identify the blind spots that you won't be able to see that a resume writer won't tell you. And so one of the things that I quickly identified for Candice was that she was extremely uncomfortable with talking about herself. And Candice, I went on a rant. Like I was all on the internet talking about, I didn't name Candice, but it's like y'all gotta learn how to talk about yourself in your work because that is keeping you from job opportunities. And but Candice, I had that heart to heart with her. She took it, she processed it in her own way, and she brought it to life because what that looked like, in all seriousness, what that looked like in her interviews is she would say a lot of, and I'm naming this because everyone does this.
Mm-hmm.
And I even told Candace I used to do that. Like it looked like saying we in interviews. We, my team, my team, my team. And this is for people, listen, I'm giving you free coaching. When you're interviewing, an employer doesn't want to know about your team. They want to know about your contributions and what you specialize in. And so for a lot of us, it's rooted in humility and trying to be humble and trying to feel like you being honest. And it was my team, no, but you contributed, right? And so I love that for you, Candice, that you took that and you used the strategies that I taught you to get comfortable with. I was like, go practice with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him what you did this week and say it from the I perspective. I love that. So that was your journey in the program. And I know you'll be super honest with the people for this next question. What were your challenges while in the program? Were there any logistical challenges, any internal challenges for you? Where did you get stuck in the program?
Well, I would say I got stuck when I had to go back to work. And so it was like I didn't have all of the free time to just do the program on maternity leave. It was like now you're juggling work on top of the new family, on top of the desire to have a new role. And so um, that was my biggest challenge because I was coming up on the tail end of the program at the time when I went back into work. And then that was the biggest challenge because for the most part I was able really to focus and um, even do the program at my own pace within the cohort. But that was my biggest challenge, going back to work and kind of having to navigate that and all the other things I was juggling at the time.
So what did the system look like for you that you created in order to manage being in the program, doing the work, being a new mommy, being back at work?
Right. Well, I think after the program, I got realistic about myself and childcare. My daughter was, even that first month I was home, my daughter was at home with us, and me and my husband had to have a conversation. I said, I'm not going to be able to find a job if I'm working from home, watching a 10-month-old at the time. She just turned one last week, so she's one now. But however old she was at the time, and I have a small little private practice. I was doing too much, so I had to protect the time. I had to get serious about putting in the things in place so that I could devote the time. I had Fridays off, but if I was watching the little one, I wasn't able to devote the Friday. So getting her and even just part-time childcare, one a couple of days a week, not not the full week, but a couple of days where I could dedicate to looking for a job. I was able to dedicate those Fridays to looking for work and coming up with a routine for myself to actually apply and keep track of the things I was applying to. Um, you know, and then I was applying, things were happening. I was getting interviews. Um, I had an upset about a job that I just knew I was, going to progress in. And I can remember you even saying, don't get too invested in a job. Don't get too, because you will, if you don't get it, then it kind of slows your momentum. So my husband said this is probably his favorite part of the process, because after that heartbreak, he knew like how much I really wanted that role. Um, he said, you just got back up. And that kind of gave me fuel to like, oh, like this is, I mean, business about this. I told myself, I'm going to have a job by my birthday. And I signed my offer letter June 28th. My birthday is July 7th. So I just had to put a different mindset on like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to go after. And I'm just believing in myself, even if you're faking it, even if you don't believe it initially, like getting used to talking about myself, I had to tell like, yeah, I am whatever job I'm applying to. I am this role already. I already do this. Like, so having that mindset while I was practicing really helped fake the funk so I can walk the walk, and not that you're faking the funk, but just kind of like boosting your own self up, and assuring yourself that you have this, you've done the work. And um, I would say it translated well for me in my interviews. Like I had a really good feeling and rapport throughout the process.
Yeah, it's just like with Beyonce and her alter ego when she's performing is Sasha Fierce, right? Like it's the same thing. I was just talking to someone who's currently in the program around like you have to adapt this persona for yourself because ain't nobody's gonna hire you if you are unsure about yourself. So you have
Right,
to show up a whole different version of yourself, not coming in saying I'm running things, but you have to show up with a level of confidence and
right.
assuredness about yourself, if that's a word.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you talked about how your realization that you were doing too much. And I want to stop for a moment and really tease apart that for listeners because I taught with a lot of social workers throughout the year. And one of the things that I noticed when I was going to like do a whole live on that, probably still will, is that a lot of social workers don't make enough time for their career advancement because they are so wore thin by other things that are what I call are not fruitful activities. So volunteering, they're on multiple committees that are unrelated to helping them get a job. They are taking CEUs and credentials, but then when it comes to pulling out their resume and blowing off the dust or looking up jobs, they just run on fumes or don't even do it at all. And so when you are wanting to change the trajectory of not just your career, but your life, it requires you to invest time and energy in it. And one of the biggest things that kind of just like I really don't understand it because for me, I know my life is different, so I'm not comparing my life to anyone. I had no choice. I had to feed myself, so I had to get really good with getting jobs and all of the things. But I never can understand why people back burner the time and energy they put into career investment. But for a lot of social workers, I understand why they feel they don't have time is because their time is stretched thin on things to further other people's lives
Right, right,
and other people's careers and agendas. So I loved that you shared that you had to have a heart to heart with yourself and say, I'm doing too much and my life has shifted. So now I need support in this other area. I need to be way more resource so I can show up better over here, which is gonna make everybody's lives better. The baby's now she go to private. Well, she could do it before, but go to summer camp and private school, all the things because mama making even more, and I love that. I love, and that's the attitude I had to adopt as a single mother. My situation is different than Candice. As a single mother, when my daughter was little, it's like this is just a short-term sacrifice for a long-term
mm,
payoff. And me and my baby really truly are eating off of the fruit, the seeds that I planted. Even when I was tired, in my cubicle, and I'm still looking for, we are eating off the fruits of that. I'm not gonna go in details, but like we are eating good,
Yeah.
the sacrifices that I made 10, 12 years ago. So I love that for you. Can you talk about um was there, you talked about the clarity, you talked about like realizing how that you need to talk more about your work in what they call it, first person, what you did versus your team. But were there any other breakthroughs or moments for you where things turned around in the program?
Um, I would say there was some I wasn't too confident of my population. I think there was some one of the three P's is like the population. Who are you gonna work with? And at first, I knew I wanted to helping professionals, but then I was also trying. I felt like I was pigeonholing myself and needed to broaden it. So I changed it to like, okay, I'm gonna work with this population and these people, and and I was like going off the deep, I was veering off from really what was in alignment for me. And so I had to go back to like, okay, no, it is helping professionals. You can um, find a role that supports helping professionals and that has the values that you're looking for, like the community that you're looking for. So just that negative thinking or feeling like, oh, the role that I want doesn't exist. And really it does exist. You just have to, most of the time it exists. You have to find it or get creative about how you're looking at the process. So I had to sometimes I think we get a little discouraged and we start veering off the path, veering off of what you said you were going to do or what you said this is what you're going to work with. And it's okay to be flexible, right? I'm not saying be rigid if something is not working for you, but sometimes we change our minds because we get discouraged and not because it's what we're really supposed to do. We let our discouragement veer us off our path. So
Most
that was the another thing that I had to kind of work through for myself.
Most definitely. That's a great point also around like, and for the listeners, that this is a process. It's
Mm,
not a checklist, right? Your career outside of this program is a process, not a checklist. And so it's important to understand that you still need to have clarity. You need to have an overall aim or why, but also understand that that can and should change based on a few different things. And I'll just name just a few. One, it should change based on you as a human in your life, how it evolves over time. And so Candice talked about that eloquently. She went from being not a mother to a mother. That's a whole nother way you need to show up in your life, and you're going to need a career that supports that. And so I name that for everyone because I see a lot of people holding on to the version of the career that supported them as a new graduate, as a person in their mid 20s, and they're now approaching their late 20s or their early 30s. You are different now. Your needs, wants, goals, desires, interests have changed. The non-negotiables you have in your personal life has changed, and your career should evolve with that too.
hmm
Why it's so important to learn the fundamentals of finding, applying, and interviewing for jobs, which is what I teach inside of the program, as well as career planning. But then also like you to evolve as a person, but the job market evolves. We've been having a lot of conversations inside of the cohorts and inside of the community around like the current landscape and what's happening under the new administration. When those changes roll down, when the job market shifts, you have to shift, regardless of what your goal is. If
Okay.
the job market doesn't support it, you're gonna have to pivot. You're gonna have to move. And so when you don't know how to move, that's when you end up in a situation where you are taking anything and doing work that you are not interested in, which leads to low career satisfaction rates. So I love that. I really love how you talked about that. So we talked about some of your final results, but let's talk about it a little more in detail. What did you have any other, like, what were the results of you finishing the program? You got the macro job. Was there anything else that you would consider a win for you?
I would just say like just going through the process, right? The win is having more confidence in myself, having the structure from the programs and the meetings with my peers to the one-on-ones with you, just kind of really learning more about myself, I would say is a win. Also, like you just said, the confirmation of like knowing when to move, you know, when the market is changing, whether it's people are laying off or whether, you know, things that you were promised were not so, or, you know, there, you know, people not valuing your worth, yet you have to be, um, you know, ready to change with what the market is. You have to be adaptable. And so I think just really having this program really gave me the tools that I needed to adapt and to honestly, you know, market myself in any environment, any economy. You know, I know that we have the skills, and even I think that question came up a lot through the program. You're like, oh, like people are talking about the economy, which are very real questions, but you're like, you know, y'all social workers, you just gotta pivot and you'll be fine. Like it wasn't even really a thing. Like you didn't allow like the anxiety or stress that people have with what may be going on in the world to like get us too worked up and off our path, off our purpose. Because I mean, we are very, what's the word, adaptable, and so you give us the tools so that we can adapt and market ourselves in different environments. So all of that is a win. Just my clarity as a social worker, and you know the role, and you know all the things that are to come. I'm really, I would say all of that is a win. It even, I would say, motivated my husband. He was like, okay, I'm gonna go back into coaching. So like you said, it trickles into like the household because you see people around you like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna invest in myself in this way. Or I'm gonna take this class, or you know, whatever they do to invest in themselves. You know, it works. You know, and so yeah, I would say it's all a win. It's a win for, like you said, from not just me but the household. It trickles down.
Most definitely. I was in someone's program earlier this year, and one of the like core beliefs that she holds in her coaching is that we know the fathers are, they're a big deal. The husbands, look, I'm not a married lady, so I don't know. Heard a lot from y'all, but we know they are a big deal. But the mothers are the like prime person in the household. Like everyone follows the mother's lead.
Mhm.
So even when we, and I know this from my own daughter, like, and she's 26 now. Like my daughter watches me and she models what I do. So like on days when I don't want to do something that I know will better position me, I do it because I know she's watching me even when I don't see her eyeballs watching me.
Mhm.
She mimics it and she adopts it. So I love that for you. Like you even if you may have some fear, some hesitation, because it had to be something to watch me for a few years before investing, and you took the leap and you did it. Now everyone else is following suit. I love that. Also I wanted to say that I wanted you to leave the people with a one aha moment, a gem, a tip, something you feel that people need to hear from you before we wrap up this episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, what you just said about like me watching you for years really, I think what that my hesitation all that time was like, oh, I could do it on my own. I could figure it out. I got it, you know. And I think sometimes when you are a doer, when you are like a leader or someone that people look up to you, it's hard for you to say, hey, like I don't have to do this on my own. I can get support for myself. I can be supported in the way that I support other people. And I think a lot of times when we are the one that people go to, it's hard for us to say, okay, like I'm going to give myself that, I'm going to, whether you invest in it or someone gives it to you, I'm going to give myself that same guidance I am to other people, and giving yourself permission to let that in and to, you know, see that process through. So I would say that is what, you know, that is what held me back, thinking, okay, I can do this on my own, I can figure it out. But also, through life you evolve and you realize, hey, like I can accept some support. I can not have to get it out the mud and go through years of not being clear and years of being miserable in a job and years of just trying to figure it out. I can go to somebody who is the expert in helping you figure it out. It's okay to lean into that. So that's the message that I would give people who may be on the fence. Is like, I mean, you maybe, I'm not saying you don't have good resources on your own, but where would you be if you rubbed heads or bumped elbows with somebody who was doing the work, and somebody that has a blueprint for you to follow, and that's gonna sit with you while you figure it out. Like, you don't have to figure it out by yourself. So that's what I would leave them with.
I love that. Thank you so much, Candice, for coming back and sharing your experience. I know it helped more than one person. It's going to help a multitude of people. And again, you did the work. You did the work. You took ownership. You showed up confidently. I love that for you, and it's a win. Because I'm telling you, a good job is going to change your life. It sounds like it already is. And so, for those who are listening, if you are interested in learning more about the Micro to Macro Career Accelerator, click the link down in the description box. Visit macroandpaid.com. There is a full website there breaking down the program, the curriculum. There's a wait list. There, enrollment is opening soon. Join the wait list. When you join the wait list, you get to schedule a free get to know you chat. Candace had one with me too last year sometime, where we talked about what she was envisioning for her career, what the obstacles were she was experiencing, and I broke down to her what we covered in the program. I talk about price and investment, and I even give you an invitation to come to a live coaching call to see what it's like inside of the accelerator while you're considering joining. So visit macroandpaid.com. Read the information, join the wait list, and until next time, happy macro career planning. Bye.